Now by Democratic Congressman from California and member of the House Foreign Affairs and Financial Services Committees, Brad Sherman. Congressman Sherman, thank you for being here.
Good to be with you, Griff, and I'd like to just take a second to pass on my condolences to the family of Sheila Jackson Lee. She was a great colleague, a great member of Congress, and she'll be missed not only by her family, but all her constituents.
And missed by reporters and producers on Capitol Hill. She was always very gracious, very professional, would talk to us. I appreciate you doing that, Sheila Jackson Lee. Let me turn, though, and get to what appears to be a breaking dam, Congressman. We've seen each day the number of Democrats calling for Biden to step aside grows. It's now at 35. The most recent one, a California fellow colleague, Mark Takano, the ranking member of the Veteran Affairs Committee. And we've seen now 4 senators, or Senator Sherrod Brown yesterday. Do you believe that there's any way to reverse this tide? And where do you stand on calls for him to step aside?
About 15% of our caucus has called upon the president to step out. Maybe about 15% has been very vocal and say stay in. And I think the more intelligent position is to give your advice quietly to the administration and to the campaign. But we ultimately, look, I think just about any Democrat has a pretty decent chance with Trump. This is a man who's America's Hitler, unfit, reprehensible, and an idiot. And that's according to J.D. Vance. So we've got to maximize our chances to win. This is a professional decision. I've won 31 elections in a row if you count primaries, and I don't go from a hunch.
Would you want, Congressman, would you want the people closest to you to tell you if you are showing these signs of mental decline and frailty? Because you saw in that defiant statement from the campaign that the president's going to get back on the campaign trail, and he's, quote, eager to prove Democrat critics, calling for him to step aside, wrong. But yet, how would you say he's doing in terms of proving them wrong? Because we see on a daily basis, he's fighting with the short stairs on Air Force One. He's stumbling, making mistakes, perhaps not as bad as the debate, but introducing Zelensky as Putin, in calling Vice President Harris President Trump.
Every slip of the tongue gets wildly exaggerated. Franklin Roosevelt, the greatest president of the last 100 years, never walked up or down stairs. But campaign operatives need to be brutally honest. I remember the time my campaign manager told me I was bald, and I was shocked, but apparently that's the case. And then reviewed a number of my other weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
Campaign people aren't worth a damn if they're not straight with you. What we need is focus groups to, and this could cost $1 million. But with good pollsters carrying out good focus groups, we can see where this campaign is going to go. And we can test not only Biden, but other possible candidates as well. But ultimately, the delegates make the decision, and those delegates are going to vote for Biden unless there's overwhelming evidence that it's best to go in another direction.
What would it take for you to call for him to step aside? Because your constituents, obviously, is what you represent. And in your district, George Clooney, who has been very public about asking for Biden to step aside, he is your constituent. Are you representing the will of your constituents if you don't call as well for Biden to step aside?
Well, according to my wife, George Clooney is the second best looking man who lives in my district. And I represent him proudly, but I represent 750,000 other people. My phone calls are going in both directions. What it would take, I don't think I would ever go public, but what would take me to go private is to see how well he performs in public, and he'll be out there very soon, but also the focus groups. And I think polling is helpful in determining this to some degree. If we go in another direction, trying to figure out whether Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer or whatever. Nobody knows who those folks are. Well, people who watch Fox know who they are, right. But swing voters are not watching Fox. They're watching Wheel of Fortune right now. Swing voters are the people who consume the least news. And we would need to show swing voters clips and biomaterial and try to figure out which direction to go in. But I think both focus groups and polling is very useful to make that first decision.
So if President Biden were to decide to step aside, are you in favor of this open convention?
I think it's an open convention, but I think the delegates would go with Harris unless there was very strong evidence in some other direction, because Harris is obviously next in line. But we'll do whatever we need to do to maximize our chances of stopping this threat to our democracy. And look, two of the Harris and Newsom are both from my state, but it's and Harris is next in line. But protecting our democracy comes first. And if we went with somebody I didn't like or even didn't know, if the professionals demonstrate that that's the direction to go in, that's the way we'd go.
Last question. We're out of time, and I appreciate you being here on set to talk about this. It's obviously the conversation all America's having. And comedian Bill Maher had a thing last night that really sort of got me thinking. He was talking about basically whether or not President Biden should fire Secret Service Director Cheadle to point out that it's unacceptable what happened. Just last answer here. Do you think that the president should fire Director Cheadle? She's coming before the House on Monday.
I'd want to see how she answers these questions before the committee. But it may not just be her. I doubt she was dealing with the site plan for that individual event. And I'd want to see a review of all the other outdoor rallies to see whether this was the one roof that they didn't cover. One would suspect that it would be a phenomenal twist of fate if crooks found the only roof that wasn't patrolled.
That's a great point, Congressman.
We need to look
previous to
we
this
need
one.
to look, yes, because the vast majority of times when the president or the former president speaks, there isn't an assassin in the audience.
Yeah. We shall see what we get on that front. Congressman Brad Sherman, thank you for your time. Thanks for being here.
Good to be